Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday afternoon live stream from. We're back in the C3 Foundation office this week, which is exciting. We've got Claudia with us again, which is exciting. And how's everybody doing out there today? We got a few people. Looks like we've got a little smaller crowd than normal, but we'll let people filter in. There's everybody. Suddenly everybody is pouring in. I see some familiar names out there, Claudia. We've got Annette and Mudforce again. So we've got some people streaming in. How's it going, Mudforce? So, all right, now that we've got people starting in, how's the sound? We have a brand new setup since we're back here at the office. I want to make sure I'm not sounding like I'm in a tin can.
I am in a tin can, actually. It's raining in Los Angeles, and I'm in a tin room because I have workmen in the other room. So let me know how I sound, too.
We got good sound, everybody? Hey, Annette. Well, I'm going to have... Okay. All right. Sounds like we are sounding fine, which is good. So today we are going to talk about building a complex support system. And honestly, is there anything that could possibly be much more important than having support? Claudia, talk about how your journey with the Sinclair method started with almost no support.
I had no support. I had zero support. At the time, I had a boyfriend that knew nothing about addiction and wasn't interested in learning about it. We subsequently, of course, broke up, and then I was completely alone. I had friends that had sort of just given up, family members that had given up. One family member who was vocally against naltrexone, another family member who said it was an excuse to drink. I was very much at that point alone in my journey. I didn't have any therapist that understood it. I didn't have a peer support group. There was no such thing as a peer support group. I had myself. And my hope, and I did have Dr. Roy Escapa to email, so that was really my support. Roy was wonderful when I first started it. If I had a question, I was able to email him. I didn't want to bother him. I also emailed David Sinclair, Dr. Sinclair himself, and that was amazing. But once again, I'm the kind of person that's not a squeaky wheel. I don't want to bother people or intrude on their privacy. So I was very cautious, but they were both very strong supporters. And I think that was also because they were hopeful that I would succeed and be able to help other people. So it was, in the beginning, though, there was nobody. I didn't reach out to Dr. Escapa until I was probably 8 months into my TSM journey. So for that first almost year, I was pretty much totally alone. And that could be part of the reason why it took me so long to get any sort of I had good progress, but I think it took me longer than a lot of people to really reach where I am now.
Right, because some people hear that you responded quickly and then they think that you just hit all your goals quickly. And
no, I should have had support through for the 9 years that I was drinking on TSM, and I didn't. And that was my naivete and my involvement with, thinking that everything was fine. But yes, I did garner support from other people on TSM, and I don't want to belittle that addition to my journey and my recovery. Every time I would host a meeting, every time I would coach somebody informally or formally, every time, you and I talked about things having to do with C3, that was part of my recovery. Absolutely. So I'm not I'm not belittling that addition to my own recovery. But as far as formal support or a parent that you could talk to, you know, yeah, it's really important to have at least a TSM buddy, somebody else that's going through it, or a cousin or a friend or somebody. It probably would have added a lot of value to my recovery.
Yeah, and and you talk about various types of support, and really support is simply the act of giving assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple when you break it down. And it's so critical. While we were preparing, I came across an article that said a strong social network is crucial for psychological and physical health, which was backed up by another article that said a lack of human connection can be more harmful to your health than obesity, smoking, and high blood pressure.
Yeah.
So that's just in general. And then when you throw in recovery and that process, because addiction can take those connections and shred them.
Totally. Yeah. And you really do find out who your friends are. And I think even for people out there who are suffering with a loved one who has a substance use disorder, maybe you're not going to be necessarily the most well-informed, or you're not going to dive deep into the reasons, but at least you can give them quiet support in the sense of saying, look, I know you're struggling. I'm here if you need anything, whether that's just to talk or go out for, or, I'll bring over some food, or whatever the case may be. There are different levels of support, and they're all valuable. So if you're the one that is supporting somebody, don't think that what you bring to the table isn't valuable, because it could be as little as, I had one friend, Holly, my friend who took me to the detox, and she just didn't say anything. She pretended like nothing was wrong. She helped me get dressed. She brought me there. She didn't judge me or shame me. Now that was support.
Right.
And she didn't know anything about alcoholism, nor did she want to. But the point is, she picked me up, got me dressed, and brought me to the detox without making me feel like a piece of what.
Right. And in your case, that was a literal pick you up.
But
sometimes one of the biggest forms of support is remembering that we're not here to fix one another. Some people just want to be heard. Some people just want to be understood. Some people just want to know that you're there if they need you. And all of those forms of support can be critical to helping somebody make the right decision when they're finally ready.
Absolutely. And you were saying something earlier, and I don't want to just brush over that, that lack of human connection can be more disruptive or detrimental to one's health than obesity. Because of the lack of human connection, physical connection as well as emotional support, past year, people haven't been able to see each other in person, haven't been able to get hugs, and we take that for granted. And I know that a lot of it has been talked about COVID and the pandemic and the repercussions on mental health and on substance use disorders. But it does pay to reiterate that if you're feeling that dearth in your life, that loss of connection, there are places to reach out, and peer support is definitely some sort of support, even though you're not, or you should have the courage to ask a friend, can we just go for a walk, social distancing? I just need to see a human being, and please don't keep it to yourself. I cannot tell you the times that it would have been so beautiful just to be able to sit with somebody without judgment, without shame, without going into anything, just sit with them and have their company. So the first step in doing that is asking for help. And that's part of support. Is part of it is you, the person who's suffering, being able to ask for support. And by the way, sometimes people will throw their arms up in the air and say, I can't support you. I don't understand what you're going through, and I wish you'd just stop. Okay, well, let's put that person aside and knock on another door. Just don't give up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because part of that connection that has been, for COVID, it's been disappearing. Addiction breaks those connections. And, and yet they're so important, because when so many people drink because they're lonely, because they're bored, because they don't have someone to say, let's go do something else. And so that loneliness and that lack of support can drive anxiety, and it can lead people to feel more stressed and want to reach for what makes them feel better, which, if you're addicted, in this case, is alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, but a lot of people who've suffered childhood trauma or trauma associated with loneliness and anxiety, they will reach out for or create comfort. They are dying for comfort, and that's, for some people, can be comfort in the form of food, and that can become an issue if you're using food for the wrong reason, and comfort in the form of alcohol. And anything that you're trying to replicate, a feeling that you get naturally from human connection, you're trying to replicate that with a thing, with a substance, it probably won't work out in the best way in the long run, because there is no substitute for real human connection.
So we know that everyone needs some level of support, whether it's just a friend, family members, or general peer support. But then there's also people with co-occurring disorders. Now, talk about some of the complexities if somebody has, and the support that someone might need if they have a co-occurring disorder, whether that is anxiety or depression or something else.
Well, I deal with a lot of people who have coexisting disorders, especially alcohol misuse coupled with anxiety, because they're self-medicating with the alcohol. And for the anxiety, a lot of people are on medications for that, and a lot of people have tried a more holistic approach, doing meditation and exercise and changing their diet and habits. But nonetheless, they're both two different issues that are intertwined. I have a lot of people with eating disorders and alcohol use disorders, so those have to be addressed in different ways. And you can find your support systems, multiple systems. And so I always try to encourage them to not necessarily rely on peer support or me for everything associated with their all issues, and say, can you find a great eating disorder group that you like? Can you find an individual who's walked that path with you, or who has suffered through something similar, whether it's anorexia or bulimia or binge eating? So it's important to, I think, to branch out and to find the people that speak the best to you for that particular issue. Now, that said, some people can find comfort, at least in one individual, say a relative or a friend, for both issues. If they have a mental health issue and a substance use disorder, they can have both addressed with that connection to a loved one. But definitely the more support you find for each individual issue is probably the best. And
that would be why our title had the word complex in it today, because let's face it, if we just look at ourselves, we cannot, nor do most of us want to be everything for one other human being or more. We're built to kind of share the load, both as, for what we need and for what we give. And so having a layered approach of multiple supports, that S, you don't want a support. I mean, a support is better than no support, but the more complex, the more multifaceted your support system is, the more likely it's going to properly support you, because one person may not be able to be there 24/7 whenever you need to talk about anything and everything. But if you have multiple people with multiple skill sets for, let's face it, we're not one-dimensional human beings. So why would we need a one-dimensional support system?
Jenny, think about it as your friends. I have friends who I do physical activities with. That's what we do. We hike, we bike, and that's how we hang out. We don't have dinners together. Our relationship is working out. Those are my workout buddies. And then I have friends who are more cerebral, who I talk books to. I wouldn't talk sports or athletics to those friends. It's not going to be a supportive, enjoyable conversation for either one of us. I'm not going to say, oh, I got a new bike, to my friend Galen. We're going to be talking about Richard III. So you can compartmentalize that. One friend is really great at supporting you through your anxiety. Another friend is really great is your TSM buddy. So yes, it's a complex support system will always be more valuable, just like having an array of friends that fulfill a lot of the things that you love doing. You can't, a lot of people say, I can't talk to my mom about that, but I can talk to my dad about that. That's the same sort of situation. Whoever fits you in that comfortable level where you can be open and honest is obviously the best person to help you with that particular issue.
So I'm going to rattle off some examples of support, and I would love to have you tell me how, in the context of TSM, they are useful. So digital peer support groups with their always open comment replies.
Well, I think that's a wonderful thing, because you never know when you have a question or when you feel alone, and there's people from all over the world, every time zone, that are going to be able to possibly respond to you. And it can be very private as well, which I think is a pressing need for some individuals. So there are people that are drawn to that. And in TSM, you never know when that moment is going to hit, even to say, I feel like drinking. Why shouldn't I? And maybe there'll be somebody that can respond.
Yeah, I remember that was probably maybe a year and a half ago, possibly even going back 2 years. There was a guy who posted in one of the support groups, and he said, "Oh, crap. I got to the bar and realized that I hadn't taken my pill yet. What do I do?" And someone's like, "Take it right now." And people just started staying in the comments to say, yes, "Okay, your hour hasn't gone up yet. Yeah. We'll keep you occupied. Just keep looking at the Facebook and keep talking to us, and we will talk you through this hour."
I remember that. And he had people supporting him for the whole hour so that he had to wait. I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, and somebody said, "By the way, your hour's up."
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I mean, and those are people who probably never will even meet face to face. It's all behind a screen.
Support. Yeah, that was amazing support.
So we've got the digital support. How about the formal and scheduled peer support groups? The things that happen at a certain time that's regular.
That's really important for people who love accountability and who need that motivation, and also to be able to plan their week and say, you know what, I'm going to do an alcohol-free, naltrexone-free evening this week. So I'm going to choose Wednesday night's meeting. and that is really, once again, that's offering support in many different directions. They're getting accountability. They're getting something to fill their evening with so they don't drink, and they're getting the love and support from a very lively, beautiful group of people on TSM. So that hits a lot of check marks.
Okay, next one is a TSM supportive medical provider. Now, I don't mean somebody who just says, "Here's your naltrexone, take it every day and don't drink." But let's talk about how beneficial it is when your doctor that prescribes you your medication supports how you are using it.
Difference. Totally world of difference. I felt so bad about myself and bad about my everything when my GP refused me a prescription to naltrexone. And the difference between that and being able to talk to any one of the providers that we have that are actively involved with their patients' recovery and supportive, the difference between having a doctor say, explain to you how to use it, support you in doing it, and when you come back 6 months or a year later, they take joy in seeing your drink log. If you say, you know what, I decreased my drinking by 60%, it there's a communication there and there's support there, and that is so important. We found, just anecdotally, that people do so much better with the support of their doctor. There's something about having a professional support you in this that brings another layer of authenticity or reality to it, as opposed to listening to somebody who's been on TSM for a month and a half. There's something about a doctor saying, yes, this does work. That even, believe it or not, I mean, I think psychologically, it instills in the person a level of trust, and trusting any support, anybody in a position of power, trusting them with your health, as we trust doctors, is a huge amount of support.
And does that make it also easier to then garner the support of your spouse or significant other?
Of course it does. If you say, well, Dr. Smith told me that I'm doing great and that I continue to take it an hour before I drink, and he encouraged me to, keep my drink log, or she encouraged me to use peer support as well. Well, great. Now your loved one is going to say, wow, the doctor's behind this. Fantastic. So yes. And I think if I know a lot of doctors do know how important of a role they play, but if they really, really knew how much benefit they offer to a patient just by saying, this sounds like a really good option for your drinking, let's try it. And I'm excited for you. I mean, just those few words of hope at a time when someone is so desperate can be literally a life changer.
Now there's another big one: a TSM supportive therapist or counselor.
This is massive. Let me tell you how many people come to me as a coach because their psychiatrist doesn't want them to talk about TSM. This is somebody that they are paying for their mental health, maybe dealing with other issues other than addiction. And now they want to address what they're using to help their drinking problem. And the psychiatrist or psychologist was saying, no, I don't believe in that, so we're not going to talk about that during the sessions. I find that unacceptable beyond belief, and that individual should research TSM and be respectful of the person's feelings and recovery. But quite often it just doesn't happen at all. So to find a good therapist who's familiar with TSM and will work with you on it and will keep you engaged and say, hey, let's look at your drink log and talk to me about how your drinking was last week in a supportive, loving manner, that would be huge. And I wish that more therapists were aware of TSM and trained to help people with TSM.
Yeah, I mean, I know
one of our goals.
Yeah, I know that for me personally, it is so frustrating every time I hear from somebody who says that they were doing so well and they went into a therapy session and they were told that they were just deluding themselves and that they just need to stop drinking altogether. And it's like, wait a minute, you are actively sabotaging your client's progress because they're doing well. They're talking to you about how they're doing so much better.
Yeah.
And you're telling them that they're delusional because they're doing better. It's infuriating to me.
Yeah. And it's also completely unprofessional. Your personal viewpoints should not come into play when you're treating a patient, especially your person. If you are, abstinence only, that doesn't dictate what your patients are doing here in the modern world to treat their substance use disorders. and you need to educate yourself.
Yeah, patient-centered care should be more than just a slogan.
That's for darn sure.
And so next up is something you're quite the expert in, is TSM coaching.
Well, I think TSM coaching is fantastic, and I'm not just saying that because I do it. I mean, I learn so much every single time I coach somebody, because I learn more about the myriad of issues that also interplay with alcohol use disorder. And I find that having been through it myself, and that garners a level of trust amongst someone, so that they know I'm not just somebody who's learned about TSM. I understand also that it takes away the shame. I mean, there's nothing anyone can say about their drinking life that is going to shock me or disgust me. One of the first things I always say is, honey, there's nothing you can say that's gonna surprise me, because I've probably done worse. So I think that helps someone understand that there's absolutely no judgment coming from me. In fact, there's a celebration, because I'm really hoping that this works for them, and that they can use this to be set free, and they can look at me and say, wow, okay, there's an example of somebody who did it correctly, did it incorrectly, and still came out the other end, and is a moderately normal person. So I think having a TSM coach is also great for motivation and accountability. I see certain people every week. I see other people every month, and it gives them something to sort of stay on track. It also encourages them to keep their drink log up to date. It encourages them to be able to collect notes. For instance, I always ask people to keep a journal, especially in the beginning, to talk about triggers and feelings. And bringing all of that back into a meeting and being able to talk about it is somewhat like a really good therapy session, because now we're really getting deep into TSM and exploring personal issues and the reasons why we drink. Because once again, you always have to ask ourselves the question, why? Why do I want the first drink? Why did I want the last 100 drinks? So I think that TSM coaching is great for a myriad of reasons.
So let's talk about the importance of having your spouse or significant other on board.
Oh boy, I've dealt with so many couples, and some of them have been wonderfully supportive, and others have been trying to dictate exactly how their loved one will act. And a lot of this comes from anger and disappointment throughout the years of living with somebody with an addiction. And it's adversely affected their children, their life, their marriage, their sex life, their health, their ability to travel. I mean, so there's so much baggage and history going on here that it is rather challenging to say to somebody, look, let's try not to think of the past 20 years of hell. Let's start fresh and try and be supportive of this, because if you're not supportive, it's going to create all sorts of problems. Your loved one is going to maybe start hiding again, lying, all the things that we need to avoid. I have a lot of spouses, that will say, well, I only want him to have 3 beers maximum. And I'm like, okay, you can't dictate what he's going to drink when he's on TSM. You have to be supportive. And the difference between saying, how much did you drink yesterday? Or, hey, how was your drinking yesterday? How did it go? The difference between those two questions is huge.
Yeah, one sounds like an accusation wrapped with a question mark at the end, and the other one is inquisitive and sounds like it is based on actually caring about the answer, as opposed to only wanting to hear a certain thing.
And also the small addition of adding a smile to it. How was your drinking yesterday? Or did you take your tablet last night? How did it go? Just that, and that there are so many ways to be supportive to a loved one. And I know that it's frustrating for the individual to watch their loved one drinking. They just really have to understand, and that it's part of the process, and that it's not linear, and that there will be great days and there will be not so great days, and they just have to be supportive and educate themselves, and have an ongoing line of conversation. If there was a heavy drinking night, say to your loved one, how can I support you in understanding why this happened, or was it something I did, or is there other sort of outside stressors that I can help you deal with? Can I take something off your plate so that this doesn't happen again? Do it with concern and love. And that's the huge difference of supporting someone in a loving manner, or saying you're supporting them. Well, I'm allowing her to do TSM. There's a huge difference between I'm letting her drink in out in the open. Okay, it's called an attitude adjustment at that point.
Yeah, we always have to be careful when we start approaching another person from a standpoint of what we want to get out of it. It's one of the reasons why I tell so many people in the who are family and support systems that Crucial Conversations is a great book to read, because it's something that you can step back and say, okay, wait a minute. Am I approaching this conversation in a way that is going to produce an actual conversation? Or how can I set that up for that best outcome? Because no one starts talking to another human being with the thought actively in their mind, I hope this turns into a fight. I mean, it does sometimes, unfortunately, but that's not usually the prevailing thought, even if it devolves that way. And so sometimes learning how to step back and look at what you want out of a conversation first.
Yeah, even the act of, exactly, and that's an act of mindfulness, is saying, what is my goal in addressing this person? What is my end goal for the conversation? And am I bringing my own negativity and baggage into the opening line? And that's it. So all that takes is a moment to stop. For instance, if you see 6 empty beer bottles there and you thought, then you're immediately going to say, did you take your pill last night? As if 6 is too much. This is all your own stuff in your head. So what you could do is say, wait a minute, they left the 6 bottles out. They're not hiding.
Right.
And that's amazing. That's a huge step in the right direction. And instead of being angry at that, you can say, you know what, I'm really glad you left those bottles out. That means you're being open about your drinking, and I'm so proud of you. Look at what a difference that response would elicit, as opposed to, did you take your pill last night?
Well, and not only that, what does that person usually drink? Was stopping at 6 a major accomplishment? Because for some people it is. And for some people, people are starting at so much higher than that, if it's not the whole 12 pack, it's a major accomplishment for them. And so you've really got to look at you've got to look at it in context. And if you simply look at something and make your own snap judgment about it without asking supportive questions, you could turn something that was a positive, like even just not hiding it, into a negative that is a sabotage on the process. And as a support system person, the last thing you want to do is accidentally sabotage your loved one in the process of trying to help.
Yeah, and also you'll cut the conversation so short. For instance, let's go back to that scenario. Somebody says, I'm really glad that you left the bottles out. That means you're willing to drink out in the open, and that's huge because you're not hiding anymore. I'm proud of you. That might make that individual say, well, you know what, 6 was a bit much. I kind of didn't want the last one. It was weird, but I made myself drink it. Now suddenly you're having a conversation. And then you can say, really? That must have felt really strange. So why do you think you did force yourself to drink? Well, I think it's the pill, And now you've got this lively, beautiful conversation going on, which is completely supportive. And what a gift to that person to be able to talk about it out in the open. and there's no shame, and wow, everybody feels good. You take the bottles out to the recycling, and now that person who's the drinker might think, you know what, I have my loved one's support. I feel so good about this. I'm going to really listen to myself now and stop when I want to stop. I mean, it can make such a world of difference.
Yeah, all you have to do is insert a little bit of empathy.
Yes, exactly.
It's so the key. So how is it beneficial for someone on TSM to have members of their extended family in their corner as supporters?
Sometimes the extended family doesn't have quite as much day-to-day personal history with some of the, let's say, negative aspects of your addiction. So for me, if I would have been close to cousins, for instance, I probably would have been able to talk to them, in fact, with a lot less shame. I was able to talk to an aunt of mine about my addiction much easier than I was to my mom, for instance, because my aunt had a kid who had a substance use disorder, and also she was kind of this no-nonsense woman who just didn't judge. She was like, well, it runs in our family, Claudia. You gotta kick it somehow, And so it was always kind of fun to talk to her, because it was such a relief to not be yelled at, and we could laugh about it. And I didn't feel that immediate guilt with her because she hadn't seen me at my worst. So I think extended family can provide a lot of support. And once again, if you're not close to your family, you can choose a friend, or sometimes even an online stranger who becomes a friend can become a support system. So don't panic out there if you don't have family or a bestie who understands it. There are other options out there.
And that you segued right into the last one I was going to mention, which is friends.
Yeah.
Now, and one of the things that I tell people, because some people, they're surprised when they actually confide in a friend and their friend is supportive. And I say, if you have a good friendship, think about it this way. When you're not sure whether or not you want to talk to that friend to try to recruit them into your corner as support for this, if your friend came to you and said, I have a problem, and I found something and I am trying to get past this problem and correct it, how would you react to your friend? You would support them no matter what that problem was that they came to you with, because you're friends. Yet it seems to be instinctive that we expect our friends not to be as supportive as we would be for them.
Yes, that's a lot of that comes a lot with shame. I mean, there's a huge difference between saying I have a problem with my crush, or I have a problem at work. There's a big difference between saying that and saying I'm worried about my drinking, because probably if your friend doesn't already know about it, then you've been hiding it from them. So it's a double whammy to admit it, and to also, think, are they going to judge me? Even if you trust the friendship, are they going to think less of me? It's really hard. There were some friends that I actively avoided drinking in front of, or kind of, poo-pooed my issue with, because I really thought they would be very judgy, or they just didn't want to hear it. And there's different levels of friendship. There are acquaintances and superficial friends and party friends and social friends, and there's deep friends, and some of my deepest friendships and my best friends were with people who, they didn't necessarily fix me or suggest anything, but they were just quietly there for me. And some of them would even say things like, well, to make me feel better, they would say, well, I'm really addicted to food, and we would talk about that, and that's how we broke the ice, and we could talk about our addictions. So you'll find your way. You just have to be honest. And if the person isn't there to support you, then they're not really a good friend. Or if they say, you know what, I don't know anything about it, and I'm probably not the right person to talk to about it, but I love you and I'll do whatever I can to help you. So
yeah, and that's still important.
Yeah.
So a little while back, and unfortunately I don't have the full numbers yet, because for those of you who don't know, you're looking at 100% of the C3 Foundation, and so we're a little taxed with our time right now. But we did some survey-based research, and we actually ran it for almost 2 years before I closed it out. So there's still a lot of data to really parse through and analyze. But we realized, looking at the data, that the more complex a person's support system is, not only did they reduce more on TSM, they did it faster. Now, these were partial numbers, with probably about half of the responses in at the time when I was looking to see how deep we wanted to go into this. And we asked people to just check off which categories of support they had. So spouse, significant other, medical professional, therapist, peer support, formal peer support, digital peer support, and we didn't have coach on there yet. So the highest you could get was a 6. 0 was absolutely no support. We found that people with 0 support were 30% higher when it came to quitting the Sinclair method with less than 6 months and without reaching extinction. So, and overall, they took, let's see, let me look at my notes here. Because the higher your support, the faster your success. So those with no support took more than a year to reduce 50%. Those with 5 or more forms of support reduced 66% in less than 6 months.
Huge. Big difference.
16% greater reduction in half the time.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And it's been proven time and time again. I have just as a coach, the clients that were consistent and motivated and showed up and had that support on a weekly or bi-weekly basis did unbelievably well. And it's important.
Yeah,
so many levels.
People always ask, can I do this any faster?
We're a society that immediate gratification isn't fast enough. We want everything tomorrow. And yeah, I have people who've been on it for 15 days who say, I don't see the difference. I don't understand. I mean, I've only reduced by like half. What? I mean, a 30-year drinking problem, and you're 2 weeks in and you've reduced your alcohol intake by half and you're not happy. That's society. That's just us with our little attention span and our desire for everything right now or yesterday.
So, but what we're seeing, at least with the initial data, is if you want to supercharge your TSM recovery, build the best support system you can build.
Absolutely.
You don't have to build it overnight. You can build it person by person, but build it. Now, maybe you need to build it, centered around the digital peer support. I mean, we offer, I was putting some numbers together today, and between our Facebook groups, the 3 that are run by the C3 Foundation, and our forum that is several years old now, we have something around 4,700 people in the peer support groups from around the world. Now, that's a lot of people that you can gather support from.
I'm sure there's one of them you'll like.
Yeah, let's hope so.
it's also, there's every meeting, the online meetings are all different too. So the different people host them. There's a different group of people from around the world, different time zones. So you'll find something that works.
And that's available every single night. There's a Zoom call, so you can see people face to face and talk with them over the Zoom call and get that support and share what you need, share your story. Sometimes it feels very supportive and opens yourself up to receiving support when you give support.
Absolutely.
So, and let me scroll up through the comments here. And Aveen mentioned that Twitch is such a great platform for building a little bit of support, just especially if you're lonely. The chats, not just our channel, but just in general, if you find a channel that you enjoy, the other people are there because they also enjoy it. And so you have a commonality just by watching the same channel at the same time, where you can chat with other people. It's one of the reasons why I chose Twitch when it came to our live streams, because we could have easily done this on Facebook. We could have easily done it to YouTube and just had that be that. But Twitch is such a great place for just being able to bring people who are interested in the same information together. I also see that apparently today is Thorlar's birthday. So Thorlar is one of our supporters who did that for those of you who don't know, did a wonderful hosting for charity and raised a whole bunch of money and then matched it for us last month. Definitely showed us some love. So happy birthday, Thorlar.
Happy birthday, Thorlar.
Oh, and it looks like we've actually informed people that we have these Facebook groups. Pascal was apparently not aware of them, so I will.
All on the resources page. If you go to the resources page and click on peer support, there's a whole list of everything.
Also, if you go to the I guess I don't have you can find our Facebook on our profile page on our Twitch. But let me go ahead and grab. I'll put a link in the chat here for you.
We could probably open it up to any questions for somebody, if anybody has any questions for us.
All right, so I just dropped a link in there to our new resource map. We don't have it in the navigation yet, but it has every link that you could hope to need from our websites. So that's in there, and you can find all of our support group options in there.
Feel free to share it on your socials.
Absolutely.
You never know who you're going to help.
All right, so I'm scrolling up through seeing if I missed any questions. My new setup has my microphone arm right in my field of vision for my chat. So it's not necessarily going to stay there long term. I think I'm going to have to move it a little bit for these streams. It's fun trying to do this for the first time with the brand new setup. And being back at the office is great. It's nice to have my room back at the house as well. Veen mentions that there's such a huge difference between meeting a good medical professional and making one who can actually make your condition worse.
Oh my gosh, I've dealt with a lot of people who were denied by their doctor, who were basically insulted by their, really very, very harmful to their recovery, and very bad experiences, traumatic experiences. I've had people who were in very punitive facilities with no empathy, and it scarred them, and it's made them, go backward in their recovery, and it's really sad. It's hard for me to see. I myself have wasted time with a lot of lack of support from medical professionals and rehab employees. So I understand, and it makes such a difference. That one person, it's like a teacher. A good teacher can make a student interested in learning, and a bad teacher can make them into someone who resents school and will drop out and, change their life adversely. So it's I wish they knew their power in a positive way.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I had an issue with a therapist years and years ago. I was in a good place in my life where I said, you know what, I think I'm ready to deal with some stuff that's been nagging me. And so I went to a therapist, and the very first night I don't remember what it was that she said or what that I said, but she's like, is that what you're expecting out of this? And I never went back.
Wow. Yeah.
I never went. And so one really bad experience with a therapist can color somebody's entire view of the profession itself. And thankfully, there are a growing number of therapists who are becoming accepting of TSM. So Pascal mentions, asks if we've considered online support systems expanding into things like Discord or Clubhouse. And tell us about Clubhouse, Claudia.
I joined Clubhouse at the prodding of lots of people, and I set up a TSM, medication-assisted treatment discussion, harm reduction discussion with Dr. Adi Jaffe and Sarah Michael Novia from All-Cure, and it was very poorly attended, and it was scheduled, and I tried to ping people in. It just I think you have to really spend way too much time that I'm not willing to do building a group. On the other hand, I was invited to join a group night before last, and suddenly I got an extra 80 followers or 100 followers or something. And, I don't know. It's a game that I'm not necessarily desirous of playing. There seems to be a lot of self-congratulatory and mutual congratulatory. May I say this to not be offensive? There's a lot of stroking going on there. There's a lot of
ego stroking.
I just love your work, and you're so authentic. And if I hear the word authentic one more time, I'm going to hurl. But we just so appreciate you. And then there's a lot of club rooms that are just people shooting the time, talking about nonsense. And then there's some party rooms, and then there's you'll hit upon an educational one, but the majority of what I've seen is just not my cup of tea. I don't feel really comfortable spending all that time listening. I'd rather listen to a podcast where I learn something than listening to a bunch of people talking about how wonderful each other is. But that's only my opinion thus far. I don't think that as far as the addiction world, it's dominated by 12-step groups on Clubhouse. So I don't really see the pressing need for us to dive deep right now into Clubhouse.
And as for Discord, it is something I'm looking into. It is, it looks like it is an enormous amount of work to get set up.
There's enough social media.
Well, Discord is actually really interesting, and I've got an account on Discord, and I've literally set a title for a C3 Foundation room, and that is as far as I've gotten because I just don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have time to self-teach and learn off of YouTube right now. And until after our conference is over in June. It is something that I'm looking into. It's something that I think would actually really take off and be a really good thing. So those of you who are out there who understand Discord and how to set it up, especially like once it gets running, that's different. But building that from scratch is just not something that I'm capable of doing. You can email me at jenny.williamson@c3foundation.org if you're willing to help me set that up and create it. Pascal, definitely do me a favor and whisper the account. I see that you're offering to help with your experience. So whisper to me. I'll talk to you after the chat. Probably not until tomorrow because I am East Coast time now. But I will definitely get back to you on that because I would like to get a Discord going because it's quick, it's easy. Think of it like once it's set up. I can't set it up. I just don't have the skill set or the time to learn them. So, but yes, it'll be in the future. I just can't give you any kind of time frame because I don't even know what I'm getting into, and I can't devote much time to it till after the conference in June. So let's see. Nat says, back to the non-understanding medical professionals. It's an issue we have here in the UK with the NHS mental health professionals in general, the lack of understanding and support that doesn't fit their view of what is the right way to do it. Well, thankfully, we've got Sinclair Method UK over there who can also do a lot of coaching and helping in that area. So anyone over in the UK specifically, definitely, but they've got tendrils that reach around the world. So just because you're not in the UK doesn't mean you can't go look them up and contact and connect with them.
They've helped a lot of people in Europe, so that's great. Sinclair Method UK does have the ability to work wonders in other countries. So
yeah, and they were formerly C3 Europe, so they know what they're talking about. There's no ambiguity on whether or not they understand the process and are supportive of it. It's you would be in as good hands as you are with us. So no reservations on that one at all.
And it's funny because C3 UK was two women, one of which did TSM and one of which didn't, because it had no need to, and it's the same as us. It's sort of the mirror image of each other. Are there any questions? Anybody out there?
I don't see any questions, but I see that we're starting a support system to expand support systems.
Okay. Nice. I like that. I like the any form of support for anybody out there is good by me.
All right. So, apparently we explain things so well, according to Aveen, that people don't have any questions.
Wonderful.
Because we covered it.
That's a good thing. I can get some stuff done this afternoon then. Jenny can get some rest.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. As always, thank you everybody for being here. It's so much fun to have you with us every week. And I love when you guys are talking both back to us and amongst each other in the chat, because it's a little bit anxiety producing when it's a blank chat screen. So I love.
Luckily, I can't see it.
I love seeing it move. I love seeing it fill up. It's great to see you guys each week, and to be able to see some of the same names every week is also just wonderful. We love seeing you back. I want to thank Claudia again for being with us this week. She is
My
not.
pleasure.
She is not going to be with us for either of the next 2 weeks. Next week we are going to have a conference replay, and it's going to be with the two gentlemen who spent extensive time in AA before then finding their ultimate success through TSM. So that's from last year's conference. If you haven't followed our channel yet, please follow the channel. Following the channel is free. It doesn't cost you anything at all. Just hit the little heart button and show some love. If you would like to subscribe, that is wonderful too. We're getting close to our first actual affiliate payout, which is exciting. So we're on the cusp. We're getting closer. Share our channel. We go through, and anything that's not a replay of another broadcast, we highlight the full thing, because Twitch usually eats that up and throws it away after 2 weeks. But we make it so that you can watch it anytime. You can come back and share it anytime. We kind of sidestep that 2-week window in that manner, since the highlights stay forever. So share our videos, share our channel. There is a donation button on our profile if you feel that you would like to do that as well. No pressure. We do this for free for a reason, because we want you to be able to access information that is going to help you.
I need more crusaders, because I'm dying to have our first meeting when we hit 50 crusaders. We're going to have a wonderful big Zoom session with everybody and share lots of love and information. So
yeah,
if anybody wants to become a crusader.
Yep, and we can put that link out there as well. 1 second, and I will zap that.
You get a newsletter, you get meetings with me, where I promise I'll provide some sort of entertainment and support, since the theme today is support. And you don't necessarily have to be on TSM to be a crusader. You can just be supportive of our cause and our desire to change the face of treatment worldwide, globally.
And it looks like we've gotten a couple follows and subscriptions. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
And Claudia will be back with us on the final Wednesday of March. And this one's going to be huge, because we've touched on it in pretty much every video that we've done so far. And this is the first time we're going to focus on it. And that's dealing with shame and stigma.
Oh, is that the 31st?
Yeah, that's the 31st. So
okay.
that's going to be a big one, because it's so pervasive and it's so crippling, and it can sabotage even the best intended person. And so we're going to talk about how to deal with that, how to not internalize it, how to not heap it upon ourselves, and all of that. So definitely keep that in mind. Mark it on your calendars. That's March 31st. Yeah, 31st. So, but I will see you back here next week for the conference replay. And then the following week, we're going to have Bruce Hodges from RIA on as our special guest. So
that's going to be great.
So it's going to be a great rest of the month. And for those of you who are outside the United States, the U.S. has our time change next week. So right now we're on Eastern Standard Time. Next week we are Eastern Daylight Time. So that might put us an hour earlier for parts of the world. So make sure you check your definitely check your time zone for how for when we're going to appear. But if you follow us, you'll get that little notification that says we're going live. So that's the benefit of following us. So anyway, thanks a lot. We will see you guys next week. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye, guys.